Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Back again with me, ADR Good Movies. In this video, I will invite you to watch a storyline, Cry for Me When I Left. Before the storyline, don't forget to subscribe and like. Rather than being curious, let's continue by watching the video until the end of the story. Okay. For 7 years, Hermione Kaufman lived a life of quiet desperation, masquerading as the perfect wife to Christopher Kaufman, the cold and distant heir to one of New York's most powerful families. She cooked, she cleaned, she raised their daughter Rain, and she poured every ounce of her soul into a home that felt more like a museum than a sanctuary. Christopher, a man who married her out of duty rather than love, never once acknowledged her efforts, treating her devotion with an indifference that bordered on cruelty. Hermione held on to the fragile hope that time would soften his heart, that eventually her love would be enough to bridge the chasm between them. But on her birthday, a day she hoped would finally be celebrated, she flew to Los Angeles to surprise him, only to find that her husband and daughter had forgotten her existence entirely in favor of another woman. The woman in question was Rachel, Christopher's first love and a rising ballet star who had returned to their lives like a ghost from the past. When Hermione arrived at the LA residence, she didn't find a husband waiting with open arms. She found her daughter, Rain, making a shell necklace for Rachel's birthday. The heartbreak was immediate and visceral. Her own child, whom she had raised with endless love, pushed her away, worried that Hermione would ruin the gift for the woman she wished was her real mother. Christopher, upon hearing Hermione was in town, didn't offer a warm welcome but a cold dismissal, claiming he was too busy to see her, only to be found later celebrating Rachel's birthday at a restaurant Hermione was barred from entering. This betrayal was the final straw. Hermione realized that for 7 years she had been fighting a losing battle against a memory. She wasn't just unloved, she was replaced. In a moment of clarity that was as painful as it was liberating, Hermione decided to stop fighting. She didn't scream, she didn't make a scene at the restaurant, and she didn't beg for attention. Instead, she quietly packed her bags, left the divorce papers she had prepared, but never had the courage to sign, and walked away from the life she had built. She resigned from Christopher's company, where she had secretly been the powerhouse behind his talent management division, and disappeared, leaving behind a husband who was too arrogant to realize that the silence in his house wasn't peace, but the echo of a woman who had finally had enough. To understand the depth of Hermione's tragedy, one must look at the foundation of her marriage. It was built on a lie she told herself, that love is a meritocracy, something earned through hard work and sacrifice. She believed that if she made the perfect coffee, ironed the perfect shirts, and raised the perfect daughter, Christopher would eventually award her with his heart. This transactional view of love is a common trap for those who feel unworthy, and Christopher exploited it masterfully. He took her labor for granted because he viewed it as the baseline requirement for being Mrs. Kaufman, never pausing to consider the human cost of her servitude. The dynamic with the daughter Rain is perhaps the most devastating aspect of this story. Rain is a child influenced by the atmosphere of her home. Seeing her father's indifference toward her mother, she learned to devalue Hermione as well. Children are perceptive. They model the behavior of the parent they perceive as powerful. Christopher was the sun, and Hermione was merely the satellite. When Rachel appeared, shining with the glamour of a ballet star and the approval of Christopher, Rain naturally gravitated toward the new mother figure who offered fun and prestige, rejecting the boring mother who offered discipline and care. The scene at the beach house in Los Angeles encapsulates Hermione's erasure. She walks in, expecting a reunion, but is treated like an intruder. Rain's comment, "You'll mess it up," referring to the gift for Rachel, is a dagger to the heart. It implies that Hermione's touch is destructive, that her presence is a contamination of their happiness. Hermione stands there, holding the invisible weight of her uncelebrated birthday, realizing that she is a stranger to her own flesh and blood. The shell necklace becomes a symbol of her replacement, a labor of love performed by her daughter for another woman. Christopher's phone call to Hermione is a masterclass in gaslighting. He lies about his availability, citing plans that imply work, while actually planning a romantic celebration for Rachel. He keeps Hermione at arm's length, managing her like an annoying employee rather than a spouse. His tone is devoid of affection. It is the tone of a man dealing with a logistical problem. Hermione, listening to the dial tone, finally accepts that his busy schedule is a euphemism for his lack of interest. The restaurant scene serves as the visual climax of the betrayal. Hermione, dining alone on her birthday, spots her family across the room. The contrast is stark. She is in the shadows eating a solitary meal while they are bathed in light, laughing and toasting to Rachel. The waiter's innocent comment, "This section is reserved for a private birthday party," underscores her exclusion. She is physically barred from her family's joy. Seeing Christopher look at Rachel with the adoration Hermione starved for is the moment her hope dies. And with the death of hope comes the birth of resolve. Rachel, the first love, is portrayed not just as a romantic rival, but as a phantom that has haunted the marriage from day one. She represents the what if that Christopher never let go of. Her return is calculated. She knows exactly what she is doing. By accepting the role of surrogate mother to Rain and soulmate to Christopher, she actively participates in Hermione's displacement. Her acceptance of the shell necklace and her playful demeanor with Christopher are performances designed to cement her status as the true Mrs. Kaufman. The flashback to their university days reveals the origin of Christopher's resentment. He believes Hermione trapped him into marriage, perhaps through a pregnancy or a family arrangement, the accident mentioned. He views himself as the victim of her machinations, which justifies his cruelty in his own mind. He has spent 7 years punishing her for loving him, unable to see that her love was the only thing holding his chaotic life together. This retributive mindset makes him blind to the reality of her current suffering. Hermione's departure is executed with military precision. She doesn't storm out, she fades out. She packs a single suitcase, leaving behind the clothes, jewelry, and trappings of her status. This shedding of material possessions symbolizes her reclaiming of her identity. She is no longer Mrs. Kaufman. She is Hermione, the talented woman who once had dreams of her own before she buried them in Christopher's shadow. The resignation letter is a professional bombshell. We learn that Hermione wasn't just a housewife. She was a key executive in Christopher's company, operating under a pseudonym or behind the scenes. She managed the talent division, signed the biggest stars, and kept the business afloat. Christopher, in his arrogance, assumed the department ran itself or credited others. Her resignation is not just a personal break, it is a tactical strike against his business empire. She is taking her brain with her. When Christopher returns home to find her gone, his reaction is typical of a narcissist. He assumes it's a tantrum. She come crawling back, he tells himself. He cannot conceive of a world where Hermione leaves him voluntarily. He views her as an appendage, incapable of independent survival. This underestimation is his fatal flaw. He expects her to be waiting by the phone, desperate for his call. When the phone doesn't ring, his annoyance turns to confusion. The grandmother, Granny, is the only character who sees Hermione's value. She represents the wisdom of the matriarch, who knows that a family is built on the labor of women like Hermione. Granny's constant attempts to bridge the gap between Christopher and Hermione are heartbreaking because they are futile. She sees the disaster coming but is powerless to stop her grandson's arrogance. Her disappointment at dinner when Hermione refuses to cook is the canary in the coal mine, a sign that the domestic order has collapsed. The dinner strike is Hermione's first act of open rebellion. For years, she cooked elaborate meals that went unappreciated. When she refuses to cook for Rachel and Christopher, citing fatigue, the family is shocked. Christopher's mother, or aunt relative, demands an apology, treating Hermione like a disobedient servant. Hermione's refusal to apologize, "I didn't do anything wrong" is a quiet revolution. It marks the end of her servitude. The discovery of the missing wedding ring is a pivotal moment. At the dinner table, someone notices Hermione's ring finger is bare. The ring, once guarded like a treasure, is gone. Christopher's indifference to this symbol is telling. He doesn't even notice until it's pointed out. For Hermione, removing the ring was the physical act of divorce. It was the unshackling. For the family, it's a scandal. For Christopher, it's an annoyance. Rey's behavior at the dinner table, refusing to have her steak cut by her mother, is a rejection of nurturing. She wants to be grown up like Rachel. Hermione accepts this rejection calmly. Since it's the last time, she thinks, cutting the steak one final time. It is a funeral rite for her motherhood. She is saying goodbye to the child who no longer wants her, releasing Reine to the consequences of her choice. The bedroom confrontation where Christopher demands a second child is the height of his delusion. He sees Hermione is pulling away, and his instinct is to trap her again with biology. "I want a second child," he says, devoid of romance, treating her womb like a vending machine. Hermione's refusal, "Our relationship is not fit for sex anymore," is a reclaiming of her body. She refuses to be an incubator for a man who won't even hold her hand. Rachel's intrusion into the office is the professional tipping point. She waltzes in, treating the workspace as her playground. Christopher allows it, undermining Hermione's authority if she were still there, or simply flaunting his disrespect for boundaries. Rachel demands coffee, and the staff looks to Hermione, who is in her final day's handover, to fetch it. The humiliation of being treated as a waitress in the company she helped build is the final professional insult. The coffee incident in the office is symbolic. For years, Hermione made Christopher's coffee exactly how he liked it, Jamaican Blue Mountain specific beans. When Rachel asks Hermione to fetch coffee for them, it reduces her expertise and care to a menial task. Hermione does it, not out of submission, but as a final closure. She delivers the coffee as a farewell to the role of the dutiful wife. It is the last service she will ever perform for him. The physical altercation where Rachel fakes being hit is the classic evil other woman trope. Rachel slaps herself or stages a fall, accusing Hermione of violence. Christopher, true to form, believes the tears of the mistress over the word of his wife. He yells at Hermione, threatening to fire her, not knowing she has already resigned. This injustice creates a clean break. Hermione realizes that no matter what she does, she will always be the villain in his story. Hermione's slap, the real one, is the moment of catharsis. After being accused falsely, she decides to earn the accusation. She slaps Rachel, or perhaps Christopher, or threatens to. "That's what it looks like when I actually hit someone," she declares. It is a reclaiming of her anger. She spent 7 years suppressing her rage. Releasing it is the first breath of her new life. Christopher's threat, "If you walk out that door, don't come back," is met with Hermione's silence. She doesn't look back. She walks out of the office, out of the building, and into a taxi. The scene of her leaving the towering skyscraper is visual shorthand for leaving the ivory tower of the Kaufman Empire. She is descending to the ground, but her spirit is soaring. The immediate aftermath for Christopher is chaos. He expects the business to continue as usual. Instead, he finds that without Hermione, the gears grind to a halt. Contracts are missing. Clients are unhappy. The talent management division is in disarray. He realizes too late that Hermione wasn't just a figurehead. She was the engine. He has to scramble to replace her, but no one has her institutional knowledge or her passion. Reine's realization that her mother is truly gone is slow and painful. Initially, she is happy with Rachel, but soon the reality sets in. Rachel doesn't know how to cut her steak. Rachel doesn't know her bedtime routine. Rachel gets bored of playing mom when the novelty wears off. Reine starts to ask, "Where is mommy?" Christopher has no answer. The silence in the house grows louder. Hermione's transformation post-departure is radiant. We see her shedding the drab wife, Clothes for outfits that reflect her true self, perhaps recalling her ballet days or a sophisticated business look. She reconnects with her old mentor, the one who gave her the award years ago. She is welcomed back into the world of ballet, not as a washed-up has-been, but as a returning queen. The Swan Award flashback reminds us of what Hermione gave up. She was a prodigy. She traded applause for silence, a stage for a kitchen. Returning to her art is not just a hobby. It is a resurrection. She starts training again, her body remembering the movements that her marriage tried to make her forget. The pain of dancing is physical, unlike the emotional pain of her marriage, and she welcomes it. Christopher's investigation into who was the manager leads to the shocking reveal. His HR director or assistant finally tells him, "Sir, Mrs. Kaufman was the head of the division." The realization hits him like a physical blow. He fired his best employee. He neglected the woman who was making him millions. The duality of Hermione, the submissive wife at home and the shark at work, confounds him. He realizes he never knew her at all. Rachel's incompetence as a stepmother and partner begins to show. She is needy, demanding, and self-absorbed. She complains about Rain's needs. She spends Christopher's money frivolously. Christopher starts to compare her to Hermione. Hermione asks for nothing. Rachel demands everything. Hermione solved problems. Rachel creates them. The shine of the first love wears off, revealing the rust underneath. The divorce papers sit on Christopher's desk, unsigned. He stares at them. Signing them makes it real. He delays. He makes excuses. "I need to talk to her first," he says. But he can't find her. She has blocked his number. She has moved to a new apartment. She has effectively ghosted him. The power dynamic has completely shifted. He is the one chasing. She is the one escaping. Hermione's meeting with a new love interest, implied in the title, Found True Love, introduces a foil to Christopher. This new man, let's call him Julian, sees her talent first, her beauty second, and her baggage last. He respects her art. He doesn't need her to shrink to fit him. He encourages her to fly. Rain's first phone call to Hermione after the split is heartbreaking. "Mommy, come home." Hermione answers, but she holds her boundary. "I can't come home, Rain. That's not my home anymore." She explains to her daughter that actions have consequences. She refuses to shield Rain from the reality of the breakup. It is a tough love lesson. You cannot treat people poorly and expect them to stay. Christopher's attempt to visit Hermione at her new place is thwarted. He is stopped by security or simply refused entry. He stands on the sidewalk, looking up at her window. It is a reversal of the restaurant scene. Now he is the outsider looking in. He sees her silhouette, perhaps dancing or laughing with friends. He realizes he is no longer the main character in her life. The grandmother's health declines, serving as a plot device to bring everyone back together. She asks for Hermione. Christopher has to beg Hermione to visit. Hermione agrees, but on her terms. She comes as a guest, not a family member. She holds Granny's hand, but she doesn't make tea for Christopher. She maintains her distance, protected by an invisible armor of indifference. The confrontation at the hospital, Granny's bedside, is tense. Rachel tries to be there, but Granny kicks her out. "I want my granddaughter-in-law," she wheezes. Christopher sees the difference in how his family treats the two women. Hermione brings peace. Rachel brings chaos. He starts to feel the full weight of his mistake. Hermione's return to the stage is the climax of her personal arc. She books a performance. Christopher buys a ticket, sitting in the back row. He watches her dance. He sees the passion, the fire, the beauty he ignored for 7 years. He weeps. Not just for the loss of his wife, but for the realization that he crushed a star to light his own small world. Rachel's jealousy peaks when she sees Christopher's obsession with getting Hermione back. She tries to sabotage Hermione's performance or spread rumors, but Christopher shuts her down. "Enough," he says. He finally sees Rachel for what she is, a petty, insecure woman. He breaks up with her, realizing that nostalgia is a liar. The regret phase for Christopher is brutal. He wanders the empty house. He looks at the kitchen where she used to cook. He smells her old perfume on a pillow. He realizes that he was happy, but he was too busy looking for something better to notice. He understands now that happiness isn't a constant high. It's the quiet comfort he threw away. Hermione's relationship with Julian deepens. He proposes or they move in together. It is a healthy, adult relationship based on mutual respect. Christopher hears about it. He wants to fight for her, but he realizes he has no weapons. He used all his ammunition hurting her. He has nothing left to heal her. Rain runs away to find her mom. Hermione finds her on her doorstep. This forces a meeting with Christopher. They sit down to talk about co-parenting. Hermione is calm, professional. Christopher is a mess. He tries to apologize. "I'm sorry for everything," he says. Hermione looks at him and says the most devastating thing possible. "I forgive you, Christopher. Because I don't care enough to be angry anymore." The indifference destroys him. Anger implies passion. Indifference implies death. He realizes she hasn't just left the house. She has left the emotional space she held for him. He is evicted from her heart. The divorce is finalized. Hermione signs the papers with a flourish. Christopher signs with a shaking hand. He loses half his assets, or she refuses them, taking only her freedom, which hurts his pride more. She walks out of the courthouse, into the sunlight, a free woman. The final scenes show the contrast in their futures. Christopher is rich but alone, sitting in a messy house with a daughter who resents him for driving her mother away. Hermione is working, dancing, loving, surrounded by friends and applause. The narrative closes on the image of the shell necklace Rain made for Rachel. It sits in a trash can discarded. A symbol of the misplaced love that ruined the family. Hermione Kaufman is dead. Long live Hermione, the swan who finally remembered she could fly. The morning after the divorce papers are signed, the Kaufman estate wakes up to a silence so loud it hurts. For 7 years, the household ran on the invisible clockwork of Hermione's labor. Now the gears have ground to a halt. Christopher wakes up to a cold side of the bed and a quiet kitchen. There's no smell of freshly brewed Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee. There is no pressed suit waiting on the valet stand. He wanders into the kitchen to find the staff standing around, confused and leaderless. They ask him what to prepare for Rain's lunch. He doesn't know. He realizes he doesn't even know his own daughter's allergies. The domestic infrastructure has collapsed, revealing just how helpless the master of the house truly is without his commander. Rain's rebellion begins not with a scream, but with a whimper. The shiny novelty of Rachel has worn off completely. Rachel, who once played the fun aunt, now finds the day-to-day grit of parenting tedious. When Rain cries for her mother, Rachel rolls her eyes, telling the child to stop being a brat. Christopher witnesses this. He sees Rachel scrolling on her phone while Rain struggles with her shoelaces, something Hermione would have turned into a game. The contrast is visceral. He sees his daughter shrinking in his own home, starved of affection, and for the first time, he feels the crushing guilt of a father who traded his child as happiness for his own ego. The professional fallout at the Kaufman Group turns catastrophic. Without Hermione's hand on the tiller, the talent management division begins to bleed clients. The stars Hermione nurtured feel abandoned and start looking for representation elsewhere. Christopher tries to step in, but he lacks her soft touch. He barks orders where she used persuasion. He throws money at problems where she used empathy. In a board meeting, a senior stakeholder asks, "Where is the woman who actually understood this business?" Christopher has no answer. He realizes that by minimizing Hermione to boost his own pride, he has effectively decapitated his own company. Rachel's spending becomes a subplot of its own. Emboldened by her status as the official partner, she begins a campaign of material consumption to fill the emotional void she feels in the house. She redecorates Hermione's sanctuary, the library, turning it into a gaudy fitness room. She buys couture she has nowhere to wear. Christopher watches the credit card bills pile up, not caring about the money, but disgusted by the gluttony. He remembers Hermione mending Rain's favorite dress instead of buying a new one, not because they were poor, but because she valued sentiment. He realizes he has traded substance for surface, and the surface is cracking. Hermione's life, conversely, is a montage of color returning to a black and white film. She moves into a loft downtown, a space filled with light and music. She reconnects with the ballet community, where she is welcomed as a prodigal daughter. We see her teaching a class of young ballerinas. Her posture, once hunched under the weight of Christopher's expectations, is now regal. She laughs a sound Christopher hasn't heard in years. She is not just surviving. She is thriving. The narrative makes it clear. The divorce didn't break her. It watered her. Enter Julian. He is the antithesis of Christopher. He is a pianist, a collaborator, a man who listens more than he speaks. He meets Hermione not as a savior, but as an equal. Their courtship is slow and respectful. There are no grand gestures of apology because there are no transgressions. He watches her dance with awe, not possession. When they walk down the street holding hands, Hermione doesn't walk a step behind him. She walks beside him. This visual shift represents the healing of her trauma. She is learning that love is not a debt to be paid, but a gift to be shared. The inevitable collision occurs at a charity gala. Christopher attends with Rachel, who is draped in diamonds that look heavy on her. Hermione arrives with Julian. She wears a simple, stunning gown, her face glowing with genuine happiness. Christopher stops mid-sentence. He sees the way Julian places a hand on the small of her back, protective, not controlling. He sees Hermione whisper something that makes Julian smile. The jealousy that erupts in Christopher's chest is primal. It is not the jealousy of love. It is the jealousy of a child seeing someone else play with a toy he discarded. Rachel, sensing Christopher's gaze, tries to stake her claim. She marches over to Hermione, attempting to humiliate her with a backhanded compliment about her quaint new life. Hermione doesn't take the bait. She looks at Rachel with a pity that is far more devastating than anger. "I hope you're happy, Rachel," she says. "You worked very hard for this prize." She gestures to a sullen, drinking Christopher. The insult lands perfectly. Hermione acknowledges that Christopher is a prize she is glad to have lost. Rachel is left holding a trophy that everyone knows is tarnished. The breakdown between Christopher and Rachel happens in the limousine ride home. The silence is broken by Rachel's insecurities. She screams at him for looking at Hermione. Christopher finally snaps. "She built a life," he shouts. "You just spent mine." He sees Rachel clearly for the first time, a parasitic element he invited in. He orders the driver to stop. He leaves Rachel on the sidewalk in her expensive gown. It is a cruel echo of how he treated Hermione, but this time the audience feels no sympathy for the woman left behind. Rain's runaway attempt is the climax of the domestic tragedy. She packs a backpack with her teddy bear and the shell necklace she made for Rachel now broken. She is found by police at the train station trying to buy a ticket to Mommy's house. Christopher picks her up at the station. Rain refuses to look at him. "I want my mom," she sobs. "You promised we would be happy." Christopher holds his weeping daughter and realizes that his pursuit of happiness with his first love has traumatized the only person who loved him unconditionally, his child. Christopher humbles himself. He drives to Hermione's loft. He stands at the door, hat in hand. When Julian answers, Christopher feels a surge of rage, but he suppresses it. He asks to speak to Hermione. Julian looks at Hermione. She nods. She comes to the door, not inviting him in. Christopher begs. He offers the moon. He offers to fire Rachel, already done, to give her the company to go to therapy. He cries. It is the performance of a man desperate to negotiate with fate. Hermione's rejection is the most powerful scene in the story. She listens to his plea without interrupting. When he is finished, she sighs. "Christopher, you are grieving the convenience I provided, not the woman I am." She explains that trust is like a mirror once broken. You can fix it, but you can still see the cracks in the reflection. She tells him that she loves Julian. Not because Julian is richer or more handsome, but because Julian never made her feel like she had to audition for his love. The custody arrangement is settled. Hermione takes Ron. Christopher doesn't fight it. He knows he is unfit. He watches Ron run into Hermione's arms, her face lighting up in a way he hasn't seen in months. He realizes that Ron is safe now. He returns to his empty mansion, which is now just a pile of bricks and expensive furniture. He walks into the nursery, smells the scent of baby powder and old memories, and collapses. He is the king of nothing. Rachel's fate is sealed in mediocrity. Cut off from Christopher's wealth, she tries to return to her ballet career, but her reputation is ruined. She is known as the homewrecker who couldn't keep the man. She fades into obscurity, a cautionary tale of overplayed hands. She realizes too late that she didn't want Christopher. She wanted the life Hermione built. But without Hermione's character, the life was unsustainable. Hermione's career reaches its zenith. She opens her own dance academy. The opening night is a triumph. Ron is in the front row cheering. Julian is playing the piano accompaniment. Hermione dances a solo that tells the story of her life, from the constriction of the cocoon to the flight of the butterfly. The audience gives a standing ovation. In the shadows of the balcony, Christopher watches. He leaves before the lights come up, unable to face the brilliance of the woman he dimmed for so long. The grandmother passes away peacefully, knowing that Hermione is happy. In her will, she leaves her personal estate not to Christopher, but to Ron, with Hermione as the trustee. It is a final act of justice from the grave. She ensures that the women of the family are protected from the whims of the men. Christopher accepts this disinheritance as his penance. Years pass. Christopher remarries, perhaps, but it is a marriage of convenience, a merger. He never looks at his new wife the way he looked at Hermione in that parking lot. He becomes a colder, sharper businessman. He succeeds financially, but his soul is atrophied. He becomes the cold-hearted man everyone always said he was, fulfilling the prophecy he created. Hermione and Julian marry in a small ceremony in a garden. Ron is the flower girl. There are no press, no expectations, just laughter and good food. Hermione says her vows with a steady voice. She promises to love, but also to honor herself. It is a mature love, born of scars and healing. Ron grows up to be a strong woman, influenced by her mother's resilience. She maintains a relationship with her father, but it is distant. She loves him, but she pities him. She sees him for what he is, a man who had everything and threw away for a mirage. She vows never to make herself small for anyone. The narrative circles back to the birthday theme. It is Hermione's birthday again, years later. The house is full of noise, friends, and family. Ron brings out a cake badly frosted, homemade, imperfect. Julian is playing Happy Birthday on the piano. Hermione blows out the candles. She doesn't wish for anything. She looks around the room and realizes she has everything she needs. Meanwhile, Christopher sits alone in his office on the same night. He pours a glass of scotch. He looks at the calendar. He knows what day it is. He picks up his phone to send a text, types "Happy Birthday," stares at it for a long time, and then deletes it. He realizes he lost the right to wish her happiness when he destroyed it. The story serves as a brutal critique of the first love trope. It deconstructs the romanticization of the past. Christopher chased a memory and lost his future. It teaches that love is not about who you met first. It's about who appreciates you now. It validates the women who stay, who build, who work, and warns the men who take them for granted. The imagery of the shell necklace returns one last time. Hermione keeps the broken pieces in a box, not as a souvenir of pain, but as a reminder of how far she and Ron have come. She glues them back together, creating a mosaic. It is imperfect, jagged, but beautiful. It is a symbol of their reconstructed lives. The final monologue is delivered by Hermione. She reflects on the 7 years of servitude. I don't regret loving him, she says. Because loving him taught me how much love I have to give. And leaving him taught me who deserves to receive it. The camera pans out from the garden party, rising above the trees, showing the city skyline where Christopher works in his glass tower. The distance between the garden and the tower is infinite. The contrast between success and happiness is the final thematic note. Christopher has success. Hermione has happiness. The story asks the viewer, which would you choose? We see a brief montage of the staff from the Kaufman estate. They have all moved on to better jobs, many working for Hermione's academy. They remain loyal to the person, not the paycheck. This underscores that true leadership is about connection, not authority. The closing shot is of Hermione dancing alone in her studio, late at night. The music ends. She stands in the silence, breathing hard, sweating, alive. She looks into the mirror and smiles at her reflection. She is no longer Mrs. Kaufman. She is herself. Final credits, scene. Rain is packing for college. She finds an old photo of her parents. She looks at it, then puts it in a drawer. She picks up a framed photo of Hermione and Julian laughing. She puts that one in her suitcase. The torch has been passed. The cycle of neglect is broken. And so, the story of the birthday betrayal ends not with revenge, but with peace. The best revenge, after all, is a life well lived. Christopher Kaufman is left with his regret, a companion that will never divorce him, never leave him, and never let him forget the woman who got away. This narrative is a mirror for every person who has felt invisible in their own relationship. It validates the pain of the good wife or the good partner who gives until they are empty. It screams that you are allowed to stop giving. You are allowed to walk away. It also serves as a warning to the Christophers of the world. It warns against the arrogance of assumption, the assumption that someone will always be there, no matter how badly you treat them. It shows that the breaking point is often silent, and once crossed, there is no return. The character of Julian represents healthy masculinity. He is secure enough to love a powerful, talented woman. He doesn't need to dim her light to shine. He celebrates her past because it made her who she is. He is the reward for Hermione's courage. The character of Rachel represents the hollowness of validation seeking. She needed Christopher to prove she was still desirable, still the eek girl. But validation from a broken man is a hollow prize. She ends up with nothing because she brought nothing to the table but need. The end. The screen fades to black. The audience is left with a sense of justice served. The scales have balanced. Hermione danced through the fire and came out refined gold. Christopher played with fire and burned his own house down.